time, my channel, welcome. Right, I'm picking this one up again, featured in a video I did recently, making a new edge for this wonky cut stone to sit in. Just going through my box of bits. Another previous video, ages ago, probably 2-3 years ago, I made this. I was showing how to make a ring shank with shoulders but with no solder join. This is the actual thing I made, I think. Anyway, so I'm going to use that. Gives me a head start on doing some work on this one. Not really decided what to do with it. I mean, just plonking that in there on those shoulders is way too bland. I want to do something a bit more fun than that. Let's find this. You know, like all collets in the world ever, the top and the bottom, they always sit parallel. Then the angles change, so they go from straight to like really steep. But the top one seems to always match the bottom one. Why? Don't have to do that at all. Top one can be that, and I can literally have a different shape bottom one if I want. So that can sit in there. I don't need to taper that edge and get it to flow down to a bottom one. I can literally just have a, what I'm thinking most sensible is to have sort of scaled down version. So it'll just be like that one and then a completely step in to the bottom one. I might do that, because that's such a big rectangle. Even a really steep angle is still going to be really big on the bottom. So I just ignore what that is to a certain degree and just make my own one that suits it. It's got to be suitable, but yeah, it doesn't have to, the sides don't have to flow down parallel at all. So what I'm thinking of doing is just cutting off the shoulders, because they're not fancy enough for me. I'm gonna keep these bottom bits sticking out, and I'll just have a little step there so I can add shoulders in on top, which I don't think I've ever done that on a video before, so this ring will be a good opportunity to show me putting shoulders on. Just side note, I'm really enjoying having a new bench peg. I think I'm going to be a bit more strict on replacing them sooner rather than later from now on. It's really useful being able to put things down in front of me like that. Anyway, so first of all I'm just going to cut these shoulders off. I just want a nice little step for the next one. Like, if I cut straight through that and my saw blade jumps through, it's going to put a nick in the bottom. That's bad news. So what I do is, in those instances where it's risky to cut right through it, I'll just get to the last bit and just wobble off the last. Get it really thin, hardly any weight on that saw blade at all. There you go. That's the safest way to do that without damaging things accidentally. So what I'm doing now is to help me make a decision. Put that stone in so I can see the depth of it. Then I can look at that from the side, hold it at the correct height where the stone is not coming out the bottom. No, I can go quite a bit lower than I was expecting. So I'll have it about there. Yeah, so now I know the height. That affects what exactly I want to do for the bottom one. I'm quite tempted to just do a completely square under bezel, because that stone is big. That's quite a distance to go across the finger. I prefer the idea of this bottom bezel being smaller rather than bigger. So anyway, I'm just going to go square and a height that I think looks right about that. So anyway, basically I just put the stone in, just adjusting it with my hands and imagining metal work and how I think would be most suitable, and that's all I'm doing. I like working like this. I'm not making sketches or anything, I'm just sort of winging it, as they say. So going for square, about 8, just under 9, a bit smaller. 8.5, I'll do it. 8.5 mil square, and I could turn up a square out of square wire. What I'm thinking of doing, I've got this chunk of metal, I can mill this out a bit wider. I'm thinking of literally just putting a big flat square in there, and then I will just simply cut out the middle of it. I like the idea of that more than turning up a square bit of wire and having to muck about all the corners and stuff. So yeah, just milled this out. Yeah, do some filing. I decided to get it nice and square now, and before I put it in, it's just much easier while this is separate and just in your hands like this. Yeah, it's good. I want to do some filing. I've got to catch up with this bench peg. It's a new bench peg. I fitted it in a previous video. Check it out if you haven't seen it already. I was talking about, I decided not to put a V in it. If I was going to put a V in it, it would just be like a little sort of centimetre in job. They are useful for like my file. If I had that there, my file would be locked in. If you're holding a piece in plies, it's nice to have an edge you can put it on. You don't really need it. I just decided not to this time, see how it goes. Just let my files naturally wear it in how it wants to, just going with the flow of how I work. When you're tapping things in a swage block, make sure they're straight. I learned this in college the hard way. I put something in slightly twisted and yeah, you ruin it. So make sure it's in nice and straight, nice and parallel. Also, I think you're better with one of these slightly too small for the curvature than too big. Too big, it just won't work very well. Too small, you just got to tap it in a few different positions. No, still ain't done. Still a bit flat on that side. You can see it, you get like flat, polished look bits where you've hit it. I can see where I've hit it this side a little bit. Bit better. Good thing about matching the curve to what the ring is, that without doing any work just clicks in nicely. I can literally solder that in. Those ends line up so nicely. I'll doubly make sure they're flat and stuff, but yeah, just from matching the curves I'm saving myself a lot of work potentially, or just reducing the amount of work that needs to be done just to get the ends flat and stuff and get that fitted in. Anyway, so I'm liking the size of that. Let me just check it. Got that over the top. So that's going to be going that way. Okay. Well, perhaps I could have gone a bit smaller, like 8mm rather than 8.5. It's alright though. I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, paper the edges, get that soldered in. So I'm soldering that square in, yeah, so I've got to be careful. First of all, making sure the shank is not scissoring at all, making sure that's all perfectly in line. Putting that in position and making sure it's correct this position, making sure it's perfectly horizontal to the shank being vertical, definitely not twisted or anything like that. What I tend to do is I line one up perfectly for soldering and get the inner edge. I think the inner edge is more difficult to adjust, so I get the inner edge lined up really perfectly, so smooth right across, and then there's a bit of a step on the top because the shoulder part is slightly thicker metal than my plate I just put in. It doesn't matter, I can file over the top of it, but yeah, those kind of adjustments are easier on the top half just because using files is easier looking down on it rather than trying to have it upside down and using the rounded section of a ring file to get it all flat. And paper whizzes and stuff. It's totally possible, but it's easier to work on the top half, so I try to concentrate. I get them lined up both nicely, but one is especially perfect and double especially on the inside edge, and then when that's soldered in I will simply just tweak it up or down the other side to get that lined up perfectly, and then solder that in. I think it's easier, just from experience. That's just kind of how I landed on working, rather than spending more time trying to get it to sit in perfectly both sides. I just have one perfect, the other one slightly off. If it wants to, fine, as long as it's staying in, as long as the correct one is staying in position, solder that, and then a very minor tweak to get the second one in. soldered in the correct position. Okay, just soldered that in. Thought I was recording, camera wasn't recording, unfortunately. I'll get the second one, don't worry. But yeah, do the first one, and then like I mentioned, I had it slightly out of alignment on purpose. It's better if you can get both like perfectly in line and you can do one solder than the next. That's the quickest, best way, most sensible way to work. But it can be time consuming. You might have to adjust literally file the side to sort of change the angles a little bit, and then getting it sitting in just so. There's tension on the ring. If you've got to push it down, you open up the ring a little bit, because that's springiness, you can spring it up a little bit. So you've got to get the tension just right, you'll get the position just right, the angles just right. It's all time consuming. I've found it's easier just to get them both good, but one side perfect, the other one very good, and then just concentrate on one, get in the right position, get the angles right, get the position right, solder that in, and then the other one just a very little bit of work, get that soldered in after. So yeah, mine's soldered in, I've just got to push it down a little bit, and yeah, ready to go. So now one's in, and I've pushed it down, I'm looking around it, making sure I like all the angles and stuff, how it's sitting. Yeah, and then just continue on with the job. It's just just with experience, you find your own ways you prefer working. Through experience, I found it painful and felt like I wasted too much time trying to get both sides correct, just to have it sitting in the correct position for soldering. Just get one correct and then do the other one after. Recording? Yes, we're recording. Okay. A bristle just came off my brush. Watch out for that. Burnt bristles on your bit you're about to solder can balls up your ability to get the solder to flood. Let's cook that on. Here's an extra bit of info I just thought of putting in the video for you. So I like to burn a bit of flux on, and then while there's a bit of warmth in that, what I'll do is pick up my little chip of solder, and that wants to stick to that because it's hot. There's sort of burning or cooking the flux or boiling the flux, and that's on that piece from the brush, from the bristles, and it will stick to it. If you put it on cold, I'll let that cool down. I'll try it again just to show you the difference. So that's cooled right down now. I'll pick up this bit of solder. Because there's no heat in that, you've just got to carefully put it in position, but you can have trouble, like it doesn't stick to it, so I can just move it around wherever I want. You can have trouble getting it to come off the brush and then land in the correct position. Also, you can have trouble, it's not impossible, but you can have trouble, say I wanted that right on the side. It's small enough that this is going to work. It sticks to the side, yeah, just with the dampness of the flux. But you can have trouble with things just simply won't sit in that position. Like if that solder's a bit bigger, it's a bit heavier, it won't sit on the side. When it's hot, you can stick things in position. I literally reckon I can get it to stick underneath if I really wanted it to. So anyway, it's more troublesome. What I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to show you is it's more troublesome getting solder in the correct position when you're applying it to cold metal. So even if you wasted time doing something or something happened, just wave a flame over it just a little bit, just a second, just to get some warmth in it, and it helps you get solder to stick in the correct position. Next problem, this is still cold, remember. Next problem with it being cold and it's not stuck on there, your flame is far more likely to blow it off position, to blow it off. See, that moved. Sometimes things just fly straight off. So you've got to be double extra careful to get things in the correct position. Double extra careful with your flame to not blow things out of position, I meant to say. Oh, the flame's a bit big. So quite a gentle flame, and I'll start just by licking it with the end of the flame. Just there's no real kind of pressure blowing it about. And then once the flux that's stuck to that bit of solder sort of cooks, it will stick itself to the metal. You can takes like a second or two, then you can apply a bit more pressure with a bigger flame. That's soldered in now. After doing a bit of soldering, I always check with my 10 times loop around the joints to make sure it's flown all the way around. And yeah, like I was talking earlier about filing it up, that is so much easier to file that top edge and get that all flowing nicely than it is to do the inside edge. Totally possible, but it's more awkward feeling what's straight on the other side, really easy. Well, I say really easy, still work carefully, but you can really see and feel what's going on much better than on the inside edge, working with that rounded side. So anyways, that's a little bit of progress on this ring shank. I will cut out that square now and start thinking about putting shoulders on and getting that sitting at the right height and stuff.